All right, so you know how sometimes when you're trying to learn something new in math, it's like almost feels like you're trying to crack a secret code or something?
Right.
Well, imagine if you had like this super smart helper right there with you, ready to help you crack that code whenever you needed.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That's actually what we're going to be diving into today. We're talking about how AI, specifically Google's Gemini AI, can be a total game changer when it comes to learning.
Yeah.
And to see this in action, we're going to be zeroing in on a topic that's like fundamental for class 6 math fractions. You know, that thing that everybody loves.
Everybody's favorite.
Oh, yeah. And to do this, we've been taking a look at a really cool YouTube video plan all about teaching class 6 fractions using Gemini AI as like a key element.
Yeah, it's a super interesting resource.
So let's kind of unpack this a little bit. You've probably heard a lot about AI, but like, what exactly is Gemini AI? And how can it actually become like a go-to helper when you're stuck trying to learn something new?
So at its core, Gemini AI is this really advanced AI assistant that was developed by Google. And, what makes it so great for learning is that it can understand and respond to you like conversationally.
Right.
So you can ask it questions just like you would ask a friend or even a tutor, and it'll give you back answers that make sense. And that are like easy to follow.
So it's not like just spitting out like robotic information.
Right.
It actually sounds like you're having a conversation with somebody.
Right, exactly. It sounds natural.
Yeah.
Which is like one of the coolest things about it.
Yeah. So for you as a student, think about what that could actually mean. Like, let's say you open your math textbook and the way they're explaining fractions, you're like, what is going on?
It's a different language.
Yeah, it's like a different language.
Math textbooks are notorious for that.
Totally. So you can literally ask Gemini to like rephrase it, basically like dumb it down for you.
Totally. Make it click.
Yeah, make it click.
And, if you're like, okay, I have this very specific question about this problem that I just can't figure out,
Right.
Gemini can probably answer that too and like actually take you through those steps. Or like maybe you need a quick summary of a long section, Sometimes the sections in textbooks are so long.
It's like pages and pages, yeah.
Yeah, it can pull out the key points for you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So it really does sound like a personalized learning assistant, basically.
It really is.
But here's like a really, really important thing to keep in mind, okay? This isn't about just getting the answers without actually understanding it.
Right.
Gemini's a tool. It's a learning tool. And the point is for you to actually learn the concepts, not just like copy down the right answer.
Right. It's not about cheating. It's about understanding.
Yeah, totally.
It's like having a different perspective.
Yeah.
Or like an extra set of notes that makes more sense to you.
Like another way of explaining it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. To kind of see this in action and like not even just related to fractions, but just like what it can do in math.
Right.
Our source like gave a couple examples. And one was, let's say you are trying to understand prime numbers.
Right.
They suggested you could just straight up ask Gemini, like explain prime numbers with examples for a 6th grader.
Yep.
Like what kind of response would you expect to get from something like that?
Well, Gemini is going to give you a really, really clear and concise like definition of what a prime number is.
Right.
Those numbers that are only divisible by 1 in themselves.
Right.
But it'll also give you examples that, a 6th grader can understand.
Right.
Like 2, 3, 5, 7. It makes it more tangible for you.
Oh, yeah. Because I remember when I was learning about prime numbers, it was like one of those things where I was just like, what? What is that?
It's really abstract.
It's very abstract.
Yeah, it's hard to grasp at first.
So having like concrete examples really helps.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So another example they gave was, imagine you're doing like a really basic algebra equation.
Okay.
And you're just like, I don't even know where to start. You could just ask Gemini, like, solve for x, 3x plus 5 equals 20.
Right.
Like, what would that look like?
So the idea is that Gemini would break down the steps.
Right.
So you can actually see the process of how you isolate x and find the value.
And not just like, magically the answer is this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes you get the answer and you're like, but how did you get there?
Right.
So it's like having someone show their work.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful, especially for students learning this stuff for the first time.
Yeah, totally. So now that we've kind of seen a little bit of what Gemini can do, like not even just with fractions, but like, with prime numbers, with equations.
Right.
Let's actually get into the meat of fractions and how Gemini can help you.
Yeah, let's get into the fractions.
So this video that we were watching, It actually walks through a full class 6 fractions lesson.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of highlight different parts of it, showing you like how Gemini could actually be a part of that process.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's start with like the very, very, very basics. What is a fraction?
Right.
Like, what does that even mean?
So fraction is just a way to represent part of a whole.
Oh,
And a classic way to think about this is with the pizza,
okay.
right?
Everyone likes pizza.
You cut it into equal slices. If you have 8 slices and you eat 3 of them, you've eaten 3/8 of the pizza.
Oh, okay. You know.
I see. So it's just a way to represent that portion.
Okay, so then when we're actually like talking about fractions, what are like the key terms that you'll see?
Right.
Like, you know, because there's like the top number, the bottom number. What are all those things?
So the top number in our pizza example, that was 3. That's called the numerator.
Numerator.
Yeah. And that's telling you how many of those equal parts we're like considering.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Got it.
And then the bottom number, which in our example was 8, that's the denominator.
Yeah.
And that's just telling you like the total number of equal parts,
Okay.
you know, how many slices there were in total.
Okay, cool. And actually the video plan we were watching had a cute little like memory trick, you know, how to remember.
Yeah.
They said denominator starts with D, think downstairs or divides.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, those little things can sometimes help.
Totally. Those little mnemonics, they can really help you remember.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, right from the beginning, we could actually start using Gemini to like even just like confirm that we're on the right page.
Right.
So we could ask it something really simple like define fraction for a class 6 student,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
Now, the point of this isn't to get like a super fancy new definition.
Right.
It's just to make sure like, okay, does what Gemini is saying line up with what we're learning?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like that initial check.
Yeah, it's just like a quick check.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got what a fraction is, like the super basics.
Right.
But like, did you know that there are actually different types of fractions?
There are, yeah.
This is where it's like, okay, now things are getting a little bit like, you know, more intense.
Yes, exactly. It gets a little more nuanced.
But it's really important to like know these different types.
Totally. So the video highlights 3 main types. You have your proper fractions, and those are the ones where the numerator is smaller than the denominator.
Okay.
So like 2/5, 1/3, 7/10, you know?
Okay.
And those always represent a value less than 1 whole.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Then you have your improper fractions.
Okay.
And those are where the numerator is bigger
Okay.
than the denominator. So 5/3, 11/4, 7/7, you know?
Yeah.
And those represent a value that's either 1 whole, like 7/7 is just 1, or more than 1 whole, like 5/3.
Okay.
Okay.
So then the third type.
Yeah, the third type is mixed fractions,
Okay.
sometimes called mixed numbers.
Right.
And these guys are a combo of a whole number and a proper fraction.
Okay.
So 1 2/3, 5 1/4, things like that.
Okay.
So it's like you have a whole pizza and then a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay, you know.
That makes sense. And like you can actually like go back and forth, like you can switch between improper and mixed fractions.
Yes, you can convert them.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, you can convert them.
Okay.
And that's a really useful skill to have.
Okay. So like if I had like 7/3
Yeah.
and I wanted to make that a mixed number, what would I do?
So you would divide the numerator, which is 7, by the denominator, which is 3.
Okay.
And when you do that, you get 2 with a remainder of 1. So the whole number part is 2. The remainder becomes the numerator of your fraction, and you keep the original denominator.
Okay.
So you get 2 1/3.
Okay.
So 7/3 is the same as 2 1/3.
Okay. And then going the other way, if I had 2 1/3 and I wanted to make that into, what was it?
An improper fraction.
Improper.
Yeah.
What would I do?
So you would multiply the whole number, 2, by the denominator, which is 3, and then you add the numerator, 1.
Okay.
So you would do 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 1, which is 7.
Right.
And that becomes the numerator of your improper fraction. And you keep the same denominator, 3.
Okay.
So you end up with 7/3.
Okay, cool. Now, this converting thing, like, is it pretty easy to remember, or is this something where, like, Gemini would be helpful?
You know, it can definitely be tricky.
Oh, okay.
Like remembering all the steps, especially if you're doing it for the first time.
Right.
So this is where, you know, our video plan suggests Gemini can help you.
Oh,
You know, you can ask it to convert like 11/4 into a mixed fraction.
Okay.
And like show all the steps. And Gemini can walk you through that.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it'll do the division for you, and then you can actually see where each number goes.
Oh, nice.
Which is really helpful for like really understanding how it works.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so moving on.
Okay, so the next big idea is equivalent fractions.
Okay, what is that?
So equivalent fractions are fractions that look different, but actually have the same value.
Oh, okay.
And, going back to our pizza example.
Okay, yeah.
Half a pizza is the same as 2/4 or 4/8.
Oh.
Right.
That is
It's just sliced into different numbers.
Okay.
So it looks different, but it's the same amount of pizza.
It's the same amount. Okay.
Yeah. And you can get these equivalent fractions by multiplying or dividing both the numerator and the denominator by the same number.
Oh, okay.
So like if you start with 2/3 and you multiply the top and the bottom by 5,
Okay.
you get 10/15, and those are equivalent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess going the other way would be simplifying.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. That's simplifying or reducing the fraction.
Okay.
So like if you have 6/9,
Okay.
you see both 6 and 9 are divisible by 3.
Right.
So you divide them both by 3, you get 2/3.
Okay.
And 2/3 is considered the simplest form because you can't reduce it any further.
Okay.
So
understanding this whole equivalent fraction thing, it's like important for other things.
it's a super important building block for other operations with fractions,
Okay.
like comparing them, adding, subtracting.
Okay.
So it's like the foundation for all that.
Okay, cool. So comparing fractions.
Okay, so now you have two fractions. How do you know which one's bigger?
Oh, yeah. Like, is 2/3 bigger than 3/4?
Right. Exactly.
How do you figure that out?
So there's a few different things you can do.
Okay.
The easiest situation is when they have the same denominator,
Oh.
like 5/8 and 3/8.
Okay.
Then you just compare the top number.
Oh, okay. Easy.
Yeah.
So 5/8 is bigger.
Exactly, because 5 is bigger than 3.
Okay.
Another easy one is if they have the same numerator.
Okay.
So like 3/5 and 3/8.
Okay.
Then the one with the smaller denominator is actually bigger.
Oh,
So
okay.
3/5 is bigger than 3/8.
Okay.
And this can be a little bit confusing, but if you think about pizza,
Oh, okay.
if you cut a pizza into 5 slices versus 8 slices,
Right.
each slice is going to be bigger when it's only 5 slices.
Right. Okay.
Right.
That makes sense.
So that's why the smaller denominator means bigger fraction.
Okay, cool.
But then the trickier situation is when the numerators and the denominators are different,
Okay.
like 2/3 versus 3/4.
Right. Then you can use a couple of different methods to figure that out.
Okay.
One is finding a common denominator.
You want to find the least common multiple, the LCM, of the denominators.
Right.
So for 3 and 4, that would be 12.
Okay.
So then you convert your fractions to be, the same denominator.
Okay.
So 2/3 becomes 8/12, 3/4 becomes 9/12.
Okay.
And then, now you have the same denominator, you can just compare the numerators.
Oh, okay.
9 is bigger than 8, so 3/4 is bigger.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And the LCM, the least common multiple, is the smallest number that both denominators divide into, which helps us get that common ground for adding and subtracting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And like Gemini can help us with this too.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
And
Okay.
you can totally use Gemini for this.
Okay, how would you phrase that?
You could say something like, which is greater, 5/6 or 7/9?
Okay.
Explain using the least common multiple.
Okay.
And then Gemini will show you how to find the LCM of 6 and 9, convert those fractions, and compare them.
So it'll not only give you the answer, but it'll like show its work again.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
And that's so helpful for understanding how to do it,
Totally, yeah.
not just memorizing the rule.
Okay. So we've figured out how to compare. Now, what about actually like doing stuff,
Yeah.
adding and subtracting?
Okay, so if you're adding or subtracting fractions that have the same denominator, it's pretty easy.
Oh,
You just add or subtract the numerators and keep the denominator the same.
okay.
So 1/5 plus 2/5 is 3/5.
Okay.
Easy peasy.
Right.
But when you're dealing with those different denominators,
Yeah.
it gets a little trickier.
Okay.
You have to find that common denominator again.
Right. Using that LCM thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, using the LCM. So you convert them to equivalent fractions that have the same denominator, and then you can add or subtract.
Yeah, okay.
So for example, if you want to add 1/3 and 1/2, the LCM of 3 and 2 is 6.
Okay.
So you convert 1/3 to 2/6 and 1/2 to 3/6.
Yeah.
And then you just add the top numbers. 2 plus 3 is 5. So you get 5/6.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And once again, I guess this would be another good area where Gemini could help us.
Yes, absolutely. This is like a perfect example of where Gemini can be really useful.
Okay.
Like, imagine you have a problem like 3/4 minus 1/6.
Right.
And you're like, oh, man, I don't know how to do this. You can ask Gemini.
Okay.
And it'll show you how to find the LCM, convert the fractions, and then subtract them.
Oh, cool.
So it breaks it down step by step.
Okay.
And then you're not just getting the answer, you're actually understanding how to get there.
Right. Exactly.
Which is, the whole point.
Okay, cool. So one last thing. Simplifying.
Okay. Yeah, simplifying, also called reducing to lowest terms.
Okay.
The goal is to make the fraction as simple as possible.
Okay.
Get rid of any common factors that the numerator and denominator have.
Okay.
So you find the highest common factor, the HCF, and then you divide both the numerator and the denominator by that number.
Okay.
So like 4/10, the highest common factor is 2.
Okay.
So you divide them both by 2, you get 2/5.
Okay.
And then another example, 12/18, the highest common factor is 6.
Right.
Divide them both by 6, you get 2/3.
Okay.
And that's simplifying.
Okay. So I'm guessing you're probably going to tell me that I can use Gemini for this too.
You know it.
Okay.
Gemini can totally help you simplify fractions.
Okay.
Like if you have a fraction like 15/25,
Right.
you can ask Gemini to simplify it, and it'll find that HCF, which is 5,
Right.
and then it'll give you the simplified answer, 3/5.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've gone through all the basics of fractions that you'd learn in class 6.
Right.
But how can Gemini help us with actual problems?
Right, because that's where it gets real.
Yeah, exactly.
So our video plan gives a couple of examples of how you can use Gemini for this.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's hear it.
Okay, so let's say you have a word problem.
Right.
Like, Ravi read 1/3 of a book on Monday and 2/5 on Tuesday. What fraction of the book did he read in total?
Okay, yeah, classic word problem.
Yeah, classic word problem. You can ask Gemini,
Okay.
solve 1/3 plus 2/5. Show me the steps.
Okay.
And Gemini will recognize that you need to add those fractions.
Right.
It'll find the common denominator.
Which is 15.
Yes.
Okay.
And then convert those fractions, 5/15 and 6/15.
Okay.
And then add the numerators, you get 11/15.
Oh, cool. So it broke it down, but then it also gave the final answer?
Exactly.
Okay, that's really cool. What about another example?
Okay, so another example is, let's say a recipe calls for 2 1/4 cups of flour,
Okay.
but you only have 1 1/2 cups. How much more do you need?
Okay. Classic baking problem.
Right, totally.
Happens all the time?
Happens all the time. So you can ask Gemini, calculate 2 1/4 minus 1 1/2.
Okay.
And explain how to do it with mixed fractions.
Okay.
And it'll probably first convert those mixed numbers into improper fractions.
Okay.
So 2 1/4 becomes 9/4.
Right.
1 1/2 becomes 3/2.
Okay.
Then it'll find a common denominator, which is 4.
Right.
Convert 3/2 to 6/4.
Okay.
And then subtract 9/4 minus 6/4 equals 3/4.
Okay.
So you need 3/4 of a cup more.
Okay. Cool.
So these examples really show how Gemini can be a real partner.
Yeah.
Not just for understanding the basic rules,
Right.
but for actually doing problems and even those tricky word problems.
It's applying it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool.
It breaks it down step by step. You can
Yeah.
check your work. It's super helpful.
Yeah. So basically, Gemini AI, it's a super helpful tool when it comes to learning fractions in class 6.
Totally. I mean, we've seen how it can explain concepts. It can solve problems. It can even help you with word problems.
Right. And like we said, it's this really cool tool to enhance how you're learning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about replacing your learning.
Right.
It's about making it easier, getting you unstuck when you need it.
Yeah. And making it so that you actually understand what you're doing.
Right.
Not just getting the right answer.
Yeah.
So really, the important thing is to make sure that you're using it as a tool to get deeper.
Right.
And not just using it for the quick, easy answer.
It's about developing those problem-solving skills too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So as you continue on your learning journey, whether you're struggling with fractions or if there's another topic that you're oh man, this is hard.
Right.
Think about how you can maybe use tools like Gemini.
Right. Explore and understand more deeply.
Yeah, because it really does open up a whole new way of looking at learning.
Totally. It's like a whole new world.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that's it for our deep dive today.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.